For more than 1,000 years, Christianity in Western Europe spoke with one voice. One church defined truth, salvation, and authority. To question it was to question God himself. But then that unity collapsed. Not in a single moment, but through a deep fracture that reshaped faith, power, and the course of history forever. During the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church was not just a religious institution, it was the centre of life itself. It crowned kings, educated elites, controlled moral order, and shaped how people understood God, death, and eternity. Faith was inseparable from authority. Heaven and hell were constant realities, and the Church claimed exclusive control over the path between them. Forgiveness, salvation, and spiritual security passed through institutional channels, leaving little room for individual conscience. Over centuries, this concentration of power created distance between church leadership and ordinary believers. While many lived in poverty, parts of the church accumulated wealth and political influence, blurring the line between spiritual mission and earthly control.
Gradually, a dangerous question emerged across Europe. Where did true authority reside? In church tradition, papal power, and councils, or in Scripture itself? This question struck at the foundation of Catholic unity. As criticism spread, unity shattered. New Christian movements rejected centralized authority and emphasized personal faith, direct access to Scripture, and individual responsibility before God. Western Christianity fractured into competing interpretations of truth. This religious fracture reshaped Europe. Kings and nations loosened their ties to Rome. Education expanded as literacy increased. Faith became deeply personal, but also deeply divisive, fueling decades of conflict and war. The Catholic Church responded with reform and resistance. Councils were convened, discipline strengthened, and doctrine clarified. This effort reshaped Catholicism itself, defining its identity in the modern world. After the Reformation, Christianity no longer spoke with one voice. Diversity of belief became permanent. While this allowed freedom of conscience, it also introduced divisions that still shape Christianity today. The Protestant Reformation was not merely a rebellion against the Catholic Church. It was a transformation of authority, faith, and identity. A transformation whose consequences continue to echo through Christianity and the modern world. Before the Reformation, the Catholic Church believed unity was essential for salvation and order. A single doctrine, a single authority, and a single structure were seen as necessary to preserve truth. Division was not viewed as diversity, but as danger. For centuries, church tradition had guided interpretation of Scripture. Councils, theologians, and papal authority shaped doctrine. When alternative interpretations emerged, they were perceived as threats not only to faith, but to social stability. As separation deepened, Christianity fractured into distinct identities. Lutheran, Reformed, Anglican, and later other Protestant traditions emerged, each claiming faithfulness to Scripture while rejecting centralized Catholic authority. The consequences were not only theological. Europe entered a period of religious conflict. Wars were fought not just for land and power, but for belief itself. Faith became intertwined with national identity, turning religious difference into political hostility. One of the most profound changes was the rise of personal faith. Believers were encouraged to read Scripture themselves, interpret it personally, and take responsibility for their spiritual life without exclusive dependence on institutional authority. This shift accelerated education and literacy. Schools expanded, printing flourished, religious texts became accessible. Christianity moved from something heard only in churches to something read and studied in homes. In response, the Catholic Church underwent deep internal reform. Corruption was addressed, discipline reinforced, and doctrine clarified. Catholicism emerged more centralized, structured, and defined than ever before. The Reformation reshaped not only Christianity, but the modern world. Concepts of individual conscience, religious freedom, and the separation of spiritual and political authority were permanently altered. What was lost in unity was gained in diversity, but at great cost. The Protestant Reformation ended 1,000 years of religious uniformity and began a new era of faith shaped by choice, conflict, and conscience. Its legacy still defines Christianity today. In the end, the Protestant Reformation exposed not only theological disagreements, but the dangerous consequences of absolute religious power. For centuries, the Catholic Church positioned itself as the sole gatekeeper between humanity and God, merging spiritual authority with political control in a way that left little room for accountability. While faith was preached as sacred, obedience was enforced as mandatory, and dissent was treated not as reflection, but as rebellion. The Church's claim to exclusive authority over salvation allowed corruption to grow unchecked, transforming spiritual fear into a tool of governance and economic exploitation. Indulgences, hierarchy, and centralized doctrine were not merely religious practices, but mechanisms of control that shaped society through fear of eternal punishment. When voices finally rose to challenge this system, the reaction was not humility, but resistance, repression, and violence. The refusal to accept criticism revealed an institution more concerned with preserving power than confronting its own failures. Though the Catholic Church would later reform aspects of its structure, the damage was irreversible. Christianity could no longer be contained within a single institution that demanded unquestioned loyalty. The Reformation did not destroy Christianity. It revealed the cost of a faith controlled by authority rather than conscience. And in that exposure, it forced the world to confront a difficult truth. When religious institutions place power above accountability, they risk betraying the very message they claim to protect.